So welcome everyone. This is the Drupal 8 Critical Issues meeting for October 16th of 2015. Apparently we have 4 critical issues. So we're probably going to talk about those and then we'll see what else. I don't think we want to do what we did last week and what we plan to work on, so probably better to just dive right into the criticals, which I've lost somewhere. I will find it sooner than later.
I'll paste them.
Okay. I have too many windows. Yeah, so we have a comment link builder causes fatal error when comment field not named comments. Update JavaScript library modernizer, which is RTBC. We have a PHP exception on managed fields after enabling conflict translation, and we have post request access bypass with file uploads, I guess. So
let's talk about the RTPC one, which is update JSLib, modernizer to 3.1. What really confused me is how this is even critical, because the modernizer library uses a custom build, so it's stripped down to exactly what /core needs and not what like general custom and contrib modules need. So like if a contrib module needed some other modernizer feature, they would have to ship with their own modernizer version anyway. So it's not really an API, kind of, maybe.
So I think it actually is an API because any JavaScript code can actually rely on it. So to
yeah,
that
but
extent,
it's so minimal.
Yeah,
the version we ship.
I'm not sure how minimal it is, but I think it is indeed for the things that core needs and the things that front-end people with a lot of knowledge have decided is the most commonly needed subset of the things Modernizer provides. But I agree that there is some debatability there. But the reason that it's bumped to critical, as far as I can read, is that otherwise we end up shipping with a version that is old, and that's a bad thing anyway.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
That it's a major version bump, and that's why it's critical. If it was just 3.0 to 3.1, then it wouldn't have been.
Right, I think it's like for the major version bumps. It's just that there's no point in releasing a major version if we can do an update. So I don't think they count towards whether we think that we're release ready or not. There could be a horrible library update that maybe does. I can think of a couple. But something like this, it's just to get it done. So I might try and commit that, but I haven't actually looked at the issue properly yet.
Yeah.
Review it first.
So maybe it is a software critical.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I think okay.
yeah, I think the irony is that those major bumps in APIs can happen anytime after the release. I think it will be more interesting once it is out. What are we going to do about those major changes, and when do we break those APIs? But for now, I think it makes sense to break it ASAP instead of postponing it to later.
Yeah, that allows us to avoid that exact problem. That's one less thing, one less library where we have to deal with that problem, or we postpone having to deal with that problem.
Yeah, exactly. It pushes it off as far as possible, which might not be very far, but it's further than if we didn't do it. So.
Yep. So I can quickly talk about the comment link builder one. So as we know, we have comments as entities, and you can create custom comments that are maybe something like feedback or whatnot. And comments have links. And in one particular case, we are forgetting to, or there is a automatic fallback to a default that causes the links to be built for the wrong comment type, the wrong comment bundle. And so that was a problem, but it got bumped to critical, I think, it's got bumped to critical because it's related to comment migration, and it blocks comment migration from working correctly. I'm not entirely sure how. But then, even though that was RTBC, it got broadened in scope because the agreement seems to be that it's a bad thing that it is automatically falling back to the default comment bundle instead of requiring you to always specify that, which would have prevented this bug in the first place. So it's going to be a mild API break. Very few things are going to be interacting with this, but that's going to prevent further problems in this area.
So I think the reason that the comment migrations fail is because there's different names for subject and no subject based on the Drupal 6 configuration. And then the no subject one gets it's not called comment, and then it falls back to comment, and it's not there. I wish that was clearer though. Oh no, it is in the issue type. Yeah, the field name comment no subject is used, and that's why you get the fatal.
Yeah.
I don't know why the field name is different. That seems to be a bit strange.
Well, I don't know, but I don't know about you guys, but I don't know enough about the details of Drupal 6 to be able to answer that.
I think it was a node type configuration setting. So it's basically 4 modes done by a per node type variable get.
Before we had 4 modes.
So then you could have a subject on one node type and no subject on another one. Like the other comment would just have the body field and no subject. So I don't see why that's not a 4 mode and why the field name has anything to do with it. I'm going to ask that on the issue, because while that doesn't fix the comment module bug, it does seem like a strange detail of comment migrations. I know, like Mike opened a meta issue about generally we've allowed people to add multiple comment fields, and then we haven't actually done any comment module to actually port it to having multiple comment fields, which is just the sort of thing that we would do. But I haven't fully looked at that. But I mean, I think like all the links and everything only deal with one, and then all the others are just ignored, which maybe that's okay. But I'm not sure everyone thought about it at the time either.
So it's critical because it's a required API change. You know, so like, I mean, it should have been that way anyway, always. But because we want to support multiple types everywhere. Because, I mean, migrate itself is experimental. So that itself shouldn't be a justification for it being critical.
Yeah, I think because it's not just the migrate. Well, you could argue that the migrate blocking bit wouldn't be blocking if it didn't use a different field name.
Yeah.
And then it's a question. It's that general problem that they've run into, something that we think people are going to, like they're going to configure a field name that's not comment, and then get a fatal. I guess for me, I think whether it's critical, if you install standard, and then can you do this from the UI, and if you can, then I think it probably is critical.
I'm not actually 100% convinced that this is like by default, because I mean the other day I was actually having 2 comment types. So I had 2 different fields. One of them had to be non-comment, and it didn't fatal on the node page.
But was one of them called comment though?
Ooh. Let me see whether I can find it, but I guess I deleted it already. Probably. So it just fatals if one of them is also named comment.
It fatals if there is no comment field called comment.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
And if you have another comment field. So if you have a comment field that's not called comment, and you don't have a comment, then it fatals. As far as I understand it anyway.
Okay, well. But yeah, I guess the API change should be there. And by that it's critical.
Yeah, I think probably that's probably what it is. Yeah, I mean, if we say that those are API classes, which I'm not sure if Comment Link Builder really is, but I need to look at the patch again. But yeah, but if it is something that we consider to be an API break, and it's
Well,
not
it's actually common storage interface, right?
right, so it probably is. Yeah.
So that's more of an API, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it is then. Yeah.
But that is actually not the reason it got originally at least marked as critical. Alex Pott commented and marked it as critical. He said, I think this is a real critical. We need to support common migration in Drupal 8, and without this, apparently it is very broken. So it seems like by now we have additional justification, but at least originally it was purely for migrate.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's only for migrate, but I think that the critical bit was only, and I'm not sure that migrate has to do it like this and run into this issue, but I agree on the API change anyway. I'll press a comment and I might try and update the.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
So the next comment on the list, issue on the list, is the PHP exception on managed fields after enabling configuration translation. I think
that's a fun one. So basically the direct reason for that is we are blindly adding base field override config files to content type translations, translation mappers, and they may or may not exist. So the most straightforward fix for the actual report is to check if they exist or not. But the fatal itself comes from an exception that the language code, the source language code in the config file is not the same across the different configs that are on the page to be translated. And that's still possible if we add the file if it exists, because there are still multiple config files, so they may still be different language. So to fix the direct bug, we can just do an exist check on the config file to fix it more broadly. I think we should check if it has the same language as the config translation mapper had, because otherwise it wouldn't work. Like, it's not possible to have a translation page that has multiple source languages and maybe different target languages, because some of the source languages may overlap with some of the target languages and stuff. And that's just way too much complexity to support, so we don't support that. So I think the patch there needs work. I've been in discussion with Alex Pott on a better approach, but I don't think he posted that at the end yet. So if he would be online, he would probably be able to say great things about it. And I think he has something in progress, so I will actually assign this to him just to make sure. Any comments on that? Concerns?
Nope.
Okay. And then the last one is arbitrary files can be referenced in post requests access bypass. I honestly have not been following that one.
So what happens if user A uploads a private file and then user B, for example via REST API, manages to just specify in the JSON that they want to use the file ID of the file of the other user, they can basically re-upload that file and then, depending on the access checking, maybe get access to the file by that. This is what I understand.
Yeah, it's any post request. So basically, we don't validate that the FID at all.
And apparently there is a separate issue that is discovered thanks to this, a separate problem. So YChat commented in comment 14 that apparently the file extensions and max file size settings are only ever validated by the widgets, so during form submissions, and not if you create file entities using REST. And so it seems like I don't fully follow it, and I haven't fully read it, but so it seems like there's two separate problems that are somewhat overlapping in this issue, or at least are discovered thanks to this issue.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's a potential second critical that maybe spawned from this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the other one, so the fact that we don't validate the file extension and max file size is critical.
Well, entity validation not entirely happening in the entity API and somewhat happening in form API does seem a big problem, especially because file extensions could, if that's not validated, it could potentially be very harmful, and max file size could potentially cause a web server to crash in some cases.
Sure.
So yeah, maybe it's less of a clear critical, but it still seems very important.
So yeah, I opened an issue for that. Just
For the second part, you mean?
For the second part, yeah. Because I think it totally doesn't belong into that particular issue.
Yeah, it does seem like it's a distraction otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. So what we should do, I guess, is to check whether if it's an existing file, check whether the user can access the file, and otherwise don't allow it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like, yeah, because if they can't access it, they shouldn't be able to browse through any file browser to be able to reference it. So it can't have been the one that it was supposed to be.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
And one important note, as the issue summary also states, this also affects Drupal 7. So this is not a regression compared to 7. It's something we've had all along. It was decided to be fixed in public.
So in Drupal 7, that was possible in the form.
Yeah, Drupal 7 obviously didn't have the REST stuff, so.
Yeah. Interesting. Well.
So the file ID validation stuff is also not happening there.
Yeah, you can construct a post request and then like swap the FID by tampering with it, and then it will just ignore. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, why was that decided to be public?
Because it's very difficult to exploit.
Now we said it in public. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to have a very specific configuration where, like, you have public upload fields and private ones, and the user has to not have access to the specific FID, which they can't discover except for enumerating the FIDs. Like, it's quite difficult. I was a bit surprised it was okay for public. I think it was decided before this was discovered, and then it was already in public anyway, and now it's public, so you can't unpublic it. I mean, obviously you could.
Yeah.
It's like, not as if it's a complete secret. It's been sitting there in the queue for a couple of weeks, so I'm not sure it was the whole. What's the word? The whole impact of the issue was fully understood before it was decided that it was public, but it's really hard to do anything with it. I mean, I don't think that there's much that you can do. It's not something that you can exploit on lots of different sites. It's something that relies on a lot of configuration, and even then you might not be able to do any damage. It might just be a random file load. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you could theoretically iterate over all file IDs and then get all the data.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, someone decided that is not critical, or not that critical.
Well, I think it's critical, but it's not. They decided it wasn't a critical security issue. It's more of a really bad bug that has security implications. But, I don't know.
I don't see the difference, to be honest, but well,
I think maybe we don't have the full story here, because the issue summary does say at the top that it has been discussed by the security team, but it was decided to be public because the impact is less critical, is what it says. And I think we may not have the.
Well, I think what is it?
everything
It's access bypass. It's not XSS and it's not CSRF. I think that's why.
Because it's quote unquote just information disclosure, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And in very, very specific circumstances. Yeah, I also see Daniel's point, of course.
I mean, the entire point that you make private files is that the people cannot access it.
But yeah, you could reference them then, but could you actually download them? Because the private file downloading is something else, so you would only be disclosing the file name, I would guess.
It would depend if the access, like if you've referenced the file from a node that you're the author of, then depending on the access control, it might then give you access to that file.
Ah, wow. Yeah, okay, so it does depend on that as well. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it may just be file name disclosure, which is, I would say, indeed not critical.
Yeah.
And then you need even further specific configuration in order to actually access the private file.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
seems...
so is that the default behavior of private files, that if you own the entity, which is so like the file usage entity, that you then get access? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'd have to go and look at it. I think it's changed between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 as well. I'm sure we changed something to do with that.
Okay, yeah, so this seems a pretty critical thing to fix, at least. So do we want to discuss these 4 criticals more, or do we want to discuss important majors, or do we want to get off the phone?
I need to head offline for 2 or 3 minutes, but I can stick around after that if people are sticking around. But I'll just drop off for a sec.
So there is a function called file download, and that looks at the usages, and then it looks at the owner of the file. But I guess the owner of the file is not the author of the actual content. So that should be less of a problem, at least by default.
Well, the owner of the file versus owner of the entity.
Yeah.
That is only looked at if the file is temporary. So
Well, I was talking more about the later bits.
Right, yeah. Yes,
but it's empty, yeah.
That should make it less critical then.
Well, it depends on file access download, but yeah.
Yeah. Sure is interesting.
So, do we have majors to talk about, or you don't have specific majors? So the next one would be RC targets and RC eligibles. Let me look up that link. So RC targets, this one. Any favorites from there you wanted to discuss, or?
Yeah, so the 2 at the top, cacheable redirect response and the sending of the Drupal cache tags and context headers. Those are the ones I've been working on a lot, and I think both are very close. Seems like we are very close to final consensus, if you will. Not sure if people have further thoughts on that, or if they also think it's very close.
I've been thinking the cacheable redirect response might be critical.
Critical, even.
Yeah, or at least not caching non-cacheable responses might be critical, because there's a few issues with max age where people are getting very confused, and we no longer have a Drupal pages cacheable false equivalent.
We no longer have what equivalent? I didn't catch that.
Drupal pages cacheable false. So you used to just be at any point in the request say don't cache this anymore.
Actually, do. You have the page cache kill switch.
Oh, we do. Yeah. We kept it.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay, so we just need to point that out to people. But I think some people are setting max age false, max age 0, and thinking it will do the same thing. But
well, yeah, that would be the logical thing, of course, but it's an independent thing.
No, I completely forgotten about that. So okay, so forget that then. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that you in the normal case don't create cacheable response objects, right? Or response objects in general.
Yeah, if you
so
do.
It wouldn't even help people in that regard. I mean, how much controller or block code or whatever creates response objects?
No, not very much. I was just thinking, I think redirects getting cached as they are now.
Yeah.
Bad, because you absolutely do not expect that to happen. I think in general, it's a slightly different issue, but that particular one was making me very uncomfortable, especially reading the earlier version of the patch, where they were kept cacheable and then you had to set things to no cache, but that's not like that anymore. So I think it's
and so I agree. The current patch is a pure API addition and no longer modifying any existing behavior or any tests, anything. CNarrow asked for 3 cases that are perfectly cacheable to be made cacheable. So there's 3 cases in core where there is absolutely zero logic being executed except just redirecting to somewhere else. And they agreed that it makes sense to make those cacheable, but I think it should happen in a separate issue because this one is an RC target, and making those 3 cases cacheable is just a nice to have.
Yeah, we're not having a patch release, but it's like a minor bug fix, right? So.
Yeah, and it could happen at any point, really, or we could say it should happen in 8.1. But in any case, I don't think it belongs in this issue because it's an RC target, and that should be therefore as minimal as possible.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So that one I wanted to bring up. The incorrect expiration in the APCU backend, which is quite interesting. It's RTBC, and so it has to do with us setting a TTL in the cache items we store in APCU, but then because APCU works in a slightly counterintuitive way, it didn't result in the expected behavior, and the fix is very simple. Maybe, Daniel, the auto route generation one, maybe you want to talk about that one. Or well, maybe not.
I mean, I really want to land that, because it's just one of many things I have in mind. But yeah, I'm not sure why it's actually RC target and not, like, who decided that it's a target.
Oh, I suggested that it should be a target.
Ah, there we go.
Do you disagree, or...?
Yeah, it has no runtime impact, yeah.
There's no runtime impact, and it reduces a lot of pain defining like a contributable custom entity type.
Yep.
So I think, considering, especially not changing the core entity types, it's worth trying to get in. If it doesn't go in, then it doesn't go in. But if it does, I think it will save 6 months of annoyance.
So the thing is that this is just, I mean, that's one part of the thing. I mean, there are so many more routes which you have still to configure, like the add form, the add page, all the revision UI thingies. So that's just one part of it, to be fair.
Yeah.
But at least it's something, right?
Yeah, it gets us a bit further, and then we can add all the missing bits in 8.1. But this doesn't mean it means that we're not starting with this. Once 8.1 opens, we're starting with all the things that really are missing that don't even have issues yet.
So one thing I realized the other day is that it changes the title of the edit page of feeds. Because from configure, so just configure as a plain string, to edit feed title.
Yep. Remember a long time ago that I was working on normalizing all of the title stuff in all of Core, where I was trying to get rid of the many places that are specifying parent title in their render array, which then overrides whatever title defaults they've set in their routes and all that. I was seeing exactly that. It's incredibly, or at least it was 6 months ago or so, incredibly inconsistent. So I think it is totally fine for that to change, because it makes things much more consistent.
Yeah, especially if it's not like a user-facing change, right? I mean, how many normal users are allowed to add feeds? I mean, Drupal.org is its special thing. No, that even there you have to manually ask for it, right?
And on top of that, it's not even like it's already perfectly translatable. Like I don't even think there's a translation change, because it's probably added and then placeholder entity. Like it's not even placeholder feed, so it wouldn't even show up as a new string to translate.
No, it'd be that we might drop a string, but we're not adding one.
Yep.
That's true.
Well, probably we've got something else that says configure, but
well, consistent first, and then we can optimize. And if we do those kind of specific optimizations, they should come with test coverage.
Yeah, right. That one didn't add one.
No.
But I mean, that doesn't seem a problem.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So
I just
another one which is probably not RC target or even RC twice, which is step 1.5, which is the following one. So in order to enable JavaScript testing in its basic form, you need to be able to say, okay, this particular test class uses JavaScript and the other one doesn't.
Okay, that would be RC eligible because it's testing.
It is. Okay.
Like it now.
Yeah.
Because just basically, it already is anyway.
Yeah. So that that's the basic approach. That so we have a thing called driver. So by default we use a PHP-based driver, and the driver is just a way how to do the HTTP request. And another driver is based upon Phantom.js, for example.
Yeah.
So we could say, okay, a test class can specify its driver, or we can say something like, yeah, that test class needs some way of JavaScript, and then like a driver could say, I provide JavaScript. That's how Behat works. But I think that's maybe too much. Like maybe it's enough if just test class say, okay, I want to use.
We could always add the JavaScript stuff later.
Okay, true.
And then take driver if it's set, and then take JavaScript if it's not. So, I haven't seen that issue yet. So I just opened it, but. When the only issue we'd run into with the driver is if like one of them completely drops support, and then we wanted to replace it, but then we could even alias it, couldn't we? More or less.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So it doesn't seem a problem. Yeah, and it's tests anyway, so we can break the API if we have to.
Yep. Regarding support, so the one I'm using in the Phantom.js is actually like a month old or something. Because so currently there are, like in Behat world, there's like either a PHP-based one or a Selenium-based one, and then Selenium talks via WebDriver API to Phantom.js, and the other driver I'm using in that particular issue is talking to Phantom.js directly.
Yeah, isn't that really old, that version?
You mean of the driver, or?
Yeah, maybe I'm out of date because I had one that was talking directly to Phantom.js.
You probably think about the zombie.js one. Could that be the case?
I'm sure it was Phantom.
Because at least, I mean, I was working on the Phantom.js one, and that's like, yeah, leading edge.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I think there was a really old way.
Could be.
Years ago, and maybe it's been brought back because people got fed up with Selenium. Because this was like 2 years ago that I was looking at this, so let's just assume that I'm out of date and that's new again. That's fine.
Okay, so currently we are blocked on the testbot infrastructure and how to get Phantom.js there.
Is there an issue for that?
There is, but it's not even clear how to do it.
Do you have a link to the issue?
Yeah, sure. The problem is that so the thing, how do we execute those tests? Because currently testbot is just using one test sh and then execute all of them. But the question is whether we want to do that, or whether we want to use like the PHP unit one thing directly.
Isn't it? So there's another issue for running PHP unit sort of properly, isn't there?
Oh yeah, I guess so, somewhere.
So if we did that, then this would be easier, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it just seems. I mean, the question is whether we want to. Yeah.
One very small thought on this. It would be very, very interesting if we could, to some extent, measure front-end performance using this as well, which in theory is possible, but unfortunately, Phantom.js to this day still does not support the navigation timing spec. I don't know why. It's very strange that it doesn't support it because it's using a relatively recent render engine, as far as I know, but for some reason that's not working. But of course, that is just a small thing. It's much more important to have JavaScript test coverage at all. It's just interesting that that's not there.
Could this be added with custom JavaScript? Running in Phantom?
No, this is something that the browser engine has to support.
Mm-hmm.
But you could do some measurements yourself, but it will be far less accurate.
Okay, that's.
There were like Phantom.js, at least network traffic things, so you can do things like how many CSS and JavaScript files were downloaded, how many images, and a few bits like that. Because this is what I was trying to do with it a couple of years ago, and it was impossible to do it with Selenium because it only let you use like one custom thing at a time, and the Selenium driver was using the same one. So once you use Selenium, you couldn't then put any of the performance stuff in as well, unless you actually merged them into your own fork of the two things, which was a pain, and that's why I got stuck. So if we're not using Selenium for it, then those things become more useful. But I don't know what the current status is, because clearly I'm 2 years out of date on it. So there are things you can do, but it's a shame that it doesn't have. Yeah, this is it. There's a I'll put a link in. That you can get HAR files, which is not web timing, but it is something.
Yeah, that would be very helpful already.
Yeah, and that was, yeah, I mean, that's something that would be nice to have.
Yep. So I need to run soon, but I also wanted to bring up one more issue that I think is potentially very important. It's this one. So the make Drupal handle incoming paths in a consistent and case-insensitive fashion. Because this is going to be quite important for sites upgrading from 6 or 7 as well. If they were using interesting quote-unquote aliases that are uppercase, but then when you access the site, it actually points to the same lowercase thing. So I don't know, like it's got a green patch again and so on, but I'm not sure how contentious it is at this point. It's a very small patch now, but.
So this time it's just about the routing. At least that, so it got split out by Catcher, I think, into one issue which handles the routing and one issue which handles the path alias.
Yeah, I asked for that, yeah.
And I think the routing one is less important than the path alias one. Or is it?
I think the path alias one is more important.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I can't decide how important the routing one is.
Because I mean, how realistic is that someone actively used an uppercase version of routing and a lowercase at the same time, and they conflict?
Right. Yeah. I thought actually that the goal of this issue was, but I see the patch is indeed just about the route stuff. But I thought this was dealing with the. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but I thought this was making sure that the incoming path was always mapped to a lowercase path, so that it doesn't eventually care about this. But maybe that's just not how it works.
That's the contentious bit of it. So the problem is that the easiest way to make the incoming paths case insensitive is to basically normalize everything to lowercase in the storage, which means that the outgoing paths are also lowercase, even if you've got routes that are mixed case or uppercase. So I was trying to argue, look, we should only handle incoming paths, and then that got, I think, Peter is not convinced that a case insensitive peg match is going to be consistent enough. And I was going to post on it, which I didn't, because I think I got distracted by something else. But I think we should just have some tests with like what we think is a reasonable set of paths, and if the peg match works, then we should just do that. Because at the moment, nothing matches, and if we have like, we can have like some UTF-8, like we can put a emoticon in a route if we want, and if that works, then it works, doesn't it? So what do we care?
Yeah, so I just pasted the other issue. That's the one I guess that matters most then. So that's the one we should be looking at.
So just a kind of random thing is the following piff job, which is about an issue which enables, so in case you have a fatal error, we currently, if you don't have enabled showing errors, it also doesn't log the error to any kind of error logging. And the idea of that issue was to log that to the error log. So one interesting thing is that it actually discovers an issue we have, which is that you can produce a database error by accessing a really exotic path with UTF-8 characters in there. So
have you got a link to that one?
Yeah, yeah. Just click on it, and then you see in the third bit of the failing test, it's creating a cache ID with a path in there, and then there are some.
So I missed your link, but now I see what you mean.
So I guess theoretically someone could access that path as well and then cause database errors. I don't know whether that's a problem.
Oh, so is that because the cache IDs are virtual ASCII now?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there's an issue for this. I'll try and find it.
Ah, good.
Although I thought we fixed it, so I'm really confused that it's still an issue. Because I thought we hashed things when they don't match. Maybe that hasn't been fixed.
Well, it wasn't it hashed when it's too long?
No, well, yes, but I think it's also hashed when it doesn't. Yeah. There was. Sorry, I'm trying to search for issues while talking. I should not do both at the same time. We do hash when it's too long, but we also hashed when we found like non-ASCII characters in the string. But perhaps that is broken. Also, it introduces. There was a recent issue where we'd added a dependency on like MB extension, and maybe that issue has regressed the hashing if the test bots don't have it. I'm going to try and find it.
Yeah, so there's normalize CD, and it checks whether the encoding is ASCII.
Yes, that bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but that certainly doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. So that's right. So if that changed recently, I don't know if the issue that was going to change it went in. but that I think that is broken. Like it's a known issue, but it may not be a known issue that it just does not work at all. Yeah, which is a shame in that case.
Because so that would produce a 500, or would it? The reason why it's not cached is because it's the cache set happens in a cache collector, and that the cache set is like cache collectors are just saved on terminate.
Yep.
And then this somehow like is hidden from
if you get
the HTTP request.
Well, yeah, that'll be. I think exceptions once you get that far down, just don't come up. I'm trying to see where the. So maybe we should open a new issue for this because I'm not sure that there's one for this particular problem.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that.
I've finally found the issue. I'll paste it in IRC. I'm not sure if you want to fold it in, but.
Okay, but that doesn't basically mean that MB check encoding is wrong.
Yeah, it means that MB check encoding is useless, so we need to use something else.
So it's the regex. So that would be a regex on every cache get and cache set.
Only set.
Oh, only set.
It should be. No. It has no because we hash it. So we have to. It has to be get as well. I mean, what we could do is hash every CID and not do the preg.
Oh yeah, then it doesn't matter. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean the only reason we didn't do that was because people like to look in a database at cache IDs to find what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But like I like not having fatal errors more than I like being able to do cache IDs in the database.
Well, I'm curious whether we could have some toggle for that. So I mean, it doesn't matter, I guess, on production. What your cache IDs are. Well, on the other hand, I mean, it's really useful to see whether, I guess the cache bin already kind of adds some categorization, what kind of cache entries you have.
I mean, you can go into Drush and you can get the cache item with the CID. And then you can see what's returned. So I'm not sure that you need to go in the database and.
I was more thinking about like the distribution of cache entries.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So ideally, we would have a different column, which is like a text or something.
Well, that's what we that was discussed in the issue that changed. March asking me, we were like, we shouldn't add a different column just for debugging. Is that C?
That could be like a contrib thing.
Yeah, I mean that could be a different cache backend.
Yeah.
You can't when you've got an issue on production where you think that you've got corrupted cache entries, or well, I guess then only for the distribution, then you could do it. I think it's a contributor. I don't think we should do it in core. I think we should just hash and not have this problem. Do you think it's worth repurposing this issue about the dependency?
Not sure. Well, do you agree with the general idea of the issue, which is about log into an error if an error happens? So the case is you don't have like error, like okay, you work on some site and you get a white screen of death.
Yeah.
Or like a 500 page, it depends. Do you want to see the error in the system log, in the PHP error log, whatever that points to?
Yeah, I think we definitely should. Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen at the moment.
That's,
Unlike you have a super PHP fatal, which stops directly.
yeah.
Okay.
Have you got a link to that issue?
Yeah. There we go.
Thanks.
Another issue I probably cannot find is on the when we have an exception, we currently say, yeah, blah, we don't give you any information, but we could actually check whether the user is logged in or whether we are on localhost or something. And in that case, show something helpful. Sorry, I can't find that issue. So yeah, I think we can just stop.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock.
That was too long. The silence was already long enough. Okay, yeah, have a nice weekend. And
Sure.
bye.
Please later.
Bye.